Jaylen Brown finally gets his supermax contract. Jaylen now with the richest contract in NBA history. Jaylen agreeing to a 5-year deal worth $304 million. There is no fifth-year player option, which means Jaylen can't opt out at any time. There is, however, a trade kicker, which would mean more money in Jaylen's wallet if the C's did decide to trade him. Welcome into Arbella Early Edition with Trenni. Amina Smith filling in. After almost a month of waiting and wondering why Jaylen Brown hadn't signed his supermax extension, the deal is now done. 5 years, $304 million, and 25 days of waiting. And it was well worth the wait. Although many said, what's taking Jaylen Brown so long? Just sign the thing. I'm glad that Jaylen Brown did this deal on his own terms and stood his ground on what he wanted. Now, whether Jaylen Brown got what he wanted or not is still to be determined. But while everyone else around the league typically signs these deals in that July 1st through 6th window, Brown showed what athletes are continuing to experiment with, doing deals on their own terms, realizing that you do have power and a voice in these conversations instead of just jumping at any and everything while other people determine your value. So kudos to Jaylen Brown for blocking out all the chatter, taking his time, and ignoring the fact that deals can be done if there is Wi-Fi present. And I mean that with plenty of love for Jaylen Brown. We got Forsberg, Tom Giles here with us right now. And guys, just like I mentioned, Jaylen Brown taking his time with this deal, and many people having discourse and conversations, Forsberg, about whether or not Jaylen Brown should be the highest paid player in the NBA. But talk about who are the winners and losers, if there really are any winners or losers in this deal when you make $304 million.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you make $304 million, there's no losers. Now, I do think the Celtics can feel pretty good. It always felt like they were going to go to 35%, but that Jaylen maybe would have to bend a little bit on that fifth-year player option. Now the Celtics know there's no chance of him opting out, getting back into the market after 4 seasons. It just gives you a little bit better ability to long-term plan. Now, Jaylen does win as well. By getting a little bit of a trade kicker thrown in here, it will complicate matters if the Celtics try to move him at any point during this deal. It's not a no-trade clause, but it does just add a layer to everything. So if the Celtics do, at some point along this way, decide to go in a different direction, then they'll have to think hard, and it might be hard to match salaries. And Jaylen would actually essentially agree to where he wants to go and waive that kicker in some situations. The bigger point for me here is this. Essentially, this is a chance for the Celtics, who rolled the dice on Jaylen at number 3 in that 2016 draft, to celebrate a homegrown player. Just as you said, Amina, we can quibble about whether he is worth the largest contract in NBA history. The next highest contract is coming right down the pipeline. Jason Tatum's going to sign it in a year. This is what you pay for superstars in the NBA, and the Celtics should celebrate that there is security moving forward into next season.
Yeah, when you look at some of those numbers, like the $69 million that he's going to get in the 5th year of that supermax extension, I mean, that could be like the 20th salary in that year. By the time everyone else gets paid and, the salary cap is expected to go up, new TV deals and everything else, I just look at the compromise in this situation because, the question I kept asking Chris Forsberg, over and over again. It's like, Forsberg, when do we start to get worried about this and the time and everything else and trying to figure out, so what could they honestly be compromising? What could they be negotiating here? And so the Celtics, it seems like got what they wanted with the no 5th-year option, and Jaylen Brown gets that trade kicker. And so, you make it work. And the trade kicker feels like a compromise to me as well. It's not a full no trade clause, but for the Celtics to trade Jaylen Brown against his wishes, if he's not going to waive it, that's, again, you're going to be paying a hefty price there. It's reportedly not 15%, but still, if you're paying 10% on a remaining contract, it doesn't feel like they're going to trade him here. So, also, that's the other big thing here.
Yeah.
You know what you have for a team for the next year, because the longer this just went on, you had to start to wonder, what's the next move if they can't get this resolved?
And Forsberg, how significant is the trade kicker? Because when I take a look at that, I think about that maybe Jaylen Brown has heard the chatter and really has been listening to it when you talk about his name being thrown into trade rumors. How significant is the trade kicker in this contract?
So here's what it is. Essentially, most players go to 15%, but here's the thing. Jaylen is signing for 35% of the cap. You can never in any season make more than that as a player. So even if they decide to trade him along the way here, so let's say he did 10% in this deal, and we'll find out soon enough what the actual number is. But if they trade him after year 1, so $52 million of that contract comes off the books. Now you still owe Jaylen $250 million. In order to move him with the 4 years remaining, you'd have to take 10%, $25 million. You spread it out over the life of that deal, let's just say $6 million per year that he would get extra per season to be moved. that complicates things because not only does he get that money, and the Celtics have to pay that money to him, but it changes the cap hit of the team taking him on and the amount of money you can take. Long story short, before like everyone's head explodes, it just makes everything much more difficult and will de-incentivize trading him, especially early in the deal when it could be very cumbersome to move him. So I think it just gives Jaylen that little extra bit of security, even though, again, he won't get all that money because he doesn't. It just
so much fine print.
I hate the NBA CBA.
So much
it is
fine
so
print.
complicated, and I mess things up, and then I get them right and I get them wrong again. So just know that he's going to feel a little bit better. He's going to sleep a little bit better. Maybe there won't be so many rumors surrounding him long term, even though the Celtics do still have some tough decisions when that deal starts to kick.
Well, and you also talk about the CBA and how kind of difficult it is to just parse through and understand. But what I also take from this is the Celtics have like a 2 to 3 year window here before they're going to have to make some really hard decisions. This is your group. Time to win now. 2 or 3 years. I'd say 3 might be even too many, but you really have to look at you're trying to win right now, and that's why they went out. They got Kristaps Porzingis, signed him to that extension, got the supermax done, and it's right there in front of them.
Well, hopefully it's happily ever after between the Celtics and Jaylen Brown. Let's take a look at the Ford Big Board. Built for America, built Ford proud. Assuming Jason Tatum gets his supermax contract, here are the projections of what the C's will be paying their superstar duo over the next 6 seasons. The number jumps from $64 million next season to $140 million in 2028, 2029. A lot of money for just 2 players. Forsberg, is this the way that the Celtics should be building their team when you take a look at the money and how the numbers are kind of jumping around?
So first off, no one has any idea because it's a new CBA and we really don't know. We think the path is 2 stars moving forward and you build the best supporting cast you can around them. Certainly it gets daunting when you think about the amount of salary commitment. Essentially, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum will be taking up 70% of the salary cap. And now again, you go over, you're trying to avoid certain aprons and certain levels. But it does prevent you from putting elite talent around them. So, right? Can you still have Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, Robert Williams, and all these guys around them long term? Probably not. Something's got to give. And yet you have to start with your star talent. And so for the Celtics, they got Jaylen and Jason. And as these deals kick in, they'll have to just measure who is the best group to move forward with. And maybe that does mean moving on from Jaylen Brown in a couple years. Maybe that means moving on from Kristaps Porzingis before his extension runs out. But for now, everybody is happy and paid and under the hood. And I do think, Giles, you laid it out perfectly. You got to maximize this year. You probably got to maximize next year. And then the show will get crazy in 2 years when we get to decide exactly what they're moving forward with.
And Brad Stevens is going to have to crush the draft. He's going to have to continue to crush the draft because those guys on those rookie deals, those are going to be extremely important.